Hello and welcome to Common Ground, an inside look at Suffolk County. I'm your host, Sheriff Steve Tompkins. Now, you know, we've been doing this series where we've been interviewing all of the candidates for the citywide seat on the Boston City Council, and today we have an extraordinary guest with us who's been here before, and that would be Miss Ayanna Pressley, and she is running to retain her seat. In the primary, she came in #1, which is like, I can't even begin to tell you how much I enjoyed seeing that, and I'm sure she did also. But we're going to talk to her about the process of running for office, holding office, but equally as important, what she does as an advocate for people, and particularly for families, women, and children. So without any further ado, Ms. Presley, ma'am.
Yes.
How are you?
It's great to see you, Sheriff.
Thanks for coming through. I really appreciate it.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah.
You know, and you have an excellent team here. They take very good care of us, and I've recently learned that you are quickly approaching your 200th show.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is
I didn't
incredible.
Know that. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, what's incredible about that is we created this show so many years ago for my predecessor, for Andrea.
Yes, that's right.
And she did actually 3. And said, that's it, I'm not doing it anymore, and you do them. But the reason we continue to do them is because oftentimes we weren't really able to tell the good news about what we get done at the Sheriff's Department through major media. You know, if it was kind of sullied in nature, okay, but if it was like that real good stuff, it was a real struggle. And so we figured, why not do our own show, tell our own story, and lo, these many years later, it's still here.
And it's only just continued to grow from there. And now you are a staple.
How about
an
that?
institution
Okay.
for many,
How about that?
many BNN watchers.
I know, it is cool. And folks actually do, like with the local newspapers, you know, and the local television program, people watch these programs because they want to hear what's going on. They want to know the news, and that's why we have you here today.
So let's let them tell them what's going on.
Tell us what's going on.
Let's let them know. Okay.
How's the campaign going on? And then after we get beyond that, I really do want to talk about the issues that are really near and dear to you.
I mean, so again, my name is Ayanna Pressley. For the last 4 years, I've had the honor of serving as one of 4 citywide city councilors, and I really do mean that. It is an honor. It is very humbling to consider that someone would go into a ballot box and check your name and entrust you with the awesome responsibility of advocating for them and their family and for making our city stronger and better.
Right.
And so I am in the midst of a campaign, but the work to position oneself to be considered for re-election, I think, begins well before that. And the chief way with which to position oneself to be considered for re-election is to do good work. And so that's really been my focus in my 4 years on the council, is using that citywide platform to serve as an effective advocate, to work on issues that I see as neighborhood transcendent, issues that before I joined the council went largely ignored, like poverty and violence and trauma, and fighting for our women and our girls.
To that note, recently we had Ruth Bramson on, the CEO from the Girl Scouts, and she mentioned that she was at a discussion with you recently where you talked about these issues around young girls and families and empowerment. Talk to us about that. What was that?
Yes,
about?
Actually, the event was just, she must have been here very recently.
Yeah,
but it's hard for me, truthfully, to distinguish, you know, I speak about girls every day, so there's not one event where I do that. It's every event where I do that. A lot of people know of my sort of political affiliation and resume, having worked for Senator John Kerry for 11 years, and prior to that, having worked for Congressman Joseph P. Kennedy II for 4 years. You know, having worked for a congressman and a senator certainly was an incredible sort of political tutelage and education. But what a lot of people don't know is that while I was doing that work, I was very active in youth development work. In my own time. There wasn't much of it, but I dedicated a lot of my time to the development and the empowerment of young girls. And also some other work dedicated to diversifying the political pipeline, recruiting more women and people of color to run, which we can talk more about some other time. But the reason why I dedicated myself to that work is because I know that broken girls grow up to be broken women. And those issues, these insidious issues that are impacting so many of our young girls, low self-worth, not feeling empowered, being victims of physical or sexual violence, growing up in homes where they see domestic violence, being in unhealthy, intimate teen partner relationships, or just, not, despite great talent and intellect, not having robust aspirations and ambitions, and really needing more mentors to help them to get on a roadmap and a pathway to success.
Tell me, I think I'm pretty certain that you created a committee within the city council that you chair that really addresses and talks about these issues. What is the name of your committee? And what was the real spark for you to say, look, I want to do this?
Sure. Well, again, it began long ago. So in doing that youth development work, very often I was being approached by young girls asking for my cell phone number, and I just didn't have the capacity. And what it demonstrated to me was that there was a growing need, and particularly in our youth programming, for there to be gender responsive and gender specific programming to meet the unique challenges facing girls, support them in their development, and to ensure their safety. And then, of course, I was once a girl myself, and I know the challenges that I endured and overcame, the challenges of growing up under, struggling circumstance. So when I joined the council as the first woman of color elected to the body in its 100-plus year history, and as the only woman currently serving on the body, I formed a new standing policy committee, right on par with sort of education, public safety, economic development. And that committee that I founded and I chair is called the Committee on Women and Healthy Communities. So we work on those issues that disproportionately impact women and girls, like human trafficking, teen pregnancy, domestic violence, sexual assault, fighting for more women in the police and fire and the building trades, and also looking to eliminate barriers for women entrepreneurs. The healthy communities part of that committee is about the stabilization of our family. I think government can certainly, in a thoughtful, comprehensive, holistic way, make a meaningful difference in people's lives. But I think too often government defines family by one narrative. And in 2013, there are many family models. There are grandparents raising grandchildren. There are families of one. There are single-parented households like the one I was raised in, 2 mommies, 2 daddies, and I just want the city to work for every family. When we stabilize every family, we'll have healthy communities and in turn a stronger city. It's
interesting because as guys are transitioning out, one of the things that I talk to my officers about, and also talk to inmates that are coming in and going out, and legislators, frankly, is the need to have these guys and ladies at home. Okay, clearly when you're incarcerated, there's a drain on society because it costs $46,000 per person to incarcerate, okay? But what people don't talk about is how that family unit now is missing a key important component.
Absolutely.
And so is it a surprise, particularly, and I have a 15-year-old son, I have a young teen boy, is it any surprise that these young boys are going to get themselves in trouble? Not that, and I came up in a single-parent household, strong mom, and I believed her when she said she would kill me, and a couple of times she actually tried. But the point here is that you need two members of the household, whether it's 2 mommies, 2 daddies, male, female. I think that you have to have the 2 adults, and
absolutely.
So what we need to look at as a society is not just the cost to incarcerate, but the destruction of the family unit.
Yes. I'll say a couple of things about that. Certainly in our efforts to not only stabilize our families, but to break cycles of recidivism, it's critically important that while loved ones are incarcerated, that we're doing everything possible to maintain those familial bonds. Because ultimately, if you want people to transition and to re-enter and to reintegrate in the most successful way possible, a huge part of that transition is going to be a family foundation. So while they're incarcerated, we have to maintain those family bonds, and there's much work that we have to continue to do that. But then we want to make sure that they successfully are reunified with family, so they can be set on the best pathway. We can give them training and give them more refined skills to secure employment, but everyone needs a home. You need a foundation. So, just quite literally, everyone needs a home. They can't get on a pathway and pursue employment without that. But the other thing I would say as the child of an incarcerated parent is that the children of incarcerated parents are 4 times more likely to drop out of school, to become pregnant, or to become violent offenders themselves. And so when we talk about breaking cycles of recidivism, we really have to be getting to that family piece, that destabilization, and how do we support the children of those incarcerated parents in maintaining that family bond, but also in making sure that they make different life choices.
Now here's the scary part. So I have 1,800 inmates on any given day. 46% of my population recidivates. Okay, 46. So we know within 6 months of leaving, they're coming back, you see. And so the thing, and what really heartens me about your committee is the fact that we also need to nurture families with social service programs.
Yes.
You know, families need to be able to get in touch with the agencies that can really help them, you know, and people don't, aside from yourself and others, really talk about that, you know. I mean, I'm just baffled sometimes, particularly like I say what's going on now with the government shutdown and so on and so forth. Okay, so you guys want to figure this out in D.C., but do you have any real concept, any real compassion for
the impact?
That's right. Yeah. What families are going through. I mean, families are just being torn asunder by folks that want to, I don't know, this is like a political football.
But that's why it's so important that each of us individually flex sort of our muscle and amplify our voice. I really believe in and I'm celebrating, you know, daily sort of the individual power of our voices and collectively, and why we have to advocate. And it also speaks to why you need a diversity of perspective in government. Because the things that you're talking about and the things that I advocate and that I work on, this is what I've always maintained. In order to change laws, you have to first change minds. And so in order to change minds, you have to first, you know, challenge their consciousness. And that comes from, you know, creating an awareness about things that people previously didn't have. It's not malicious. It just comes from a place of not knowing. It just comes from a place of ignorance. And so that is the true benefit and value of diversity. But it's also why when you talk about the government shutdown, we need people to vote. We need people to participate. We need them to civically engage. We need you to write letters. We need you to send emails and remind government every day that this is not just about balancing a ledger, that behind every number there is a person and a story.
That's right.
And you have to be telling your story all the time so that ultimately we can make sure the government serves you.
So now when you say the word diversity, and I think what comes to people's mind the most is skin color when you talk about diversity. But the thing that I've always embraced is our differences are our strengths. Okay, and so if everybody looked like me, talked like me, thought like me, it would actually be a fun place. No, I'm only kidding. No. But I mean, you can't have that. You know, so when you talk about sexism, racism, classism, okay, and let's talk about classism for a second, because I mean, clearly there's racism, but you know, there are the haves and then there's the rest of us, you know, and that middle is shrinking. And the rest of us is not just black or Latin, it's white, it's European, it's everything, it's African, you see? And so these are the things that we really have to be conscious of. But actually, we're not really here for you to talk. For me to talk about.
No, but I have a lot that I can say about that ties into the work that I do. And so, you know, what I would say is that as someone who strives daily to break cycles of poverty and violence and to reduce trauma in our communities, what I know is that for as long as we have a growing wealth and equity gap, as long as that chasm continues to grow, we will continue to see economic and health disparities and I mean education and health disparities. So where there are wealth inequities, you're going to see inequities in our education system, and you're also going to see health inequities and disparities. So we have got to close that gap. You know, as a study recently reminded us, poverty used to be them, and now it's us. It's just growing. It's everyone. And so there are a couple of things on the council that I've been working on to really close that wealth inequity gap and to really make sure that families have a path.